This might just be the best pulled pork you have ever made, and I'm going to show you how to make it on Blackstone's new pellet grill. I'm going to start the night before my cook with a whole pork butt. I'm going to pat this thing dry all over with some paper towels, make sure I get all that juice off of there. Then I'm going to use some regular yellow mustard and rub it all over this pork butt. This mustard is not going to add any flavor to this pork butt. It's really just going to act as a binder for my rub that I'm going to put on next. Once you have this pork butt rubbed completely with yellow mustard, you can add your dry rub. You can use whatever dry rub you want here. I just happen to be using Meat Church's Holy Voodoo. I really like this seasoning. It's got sweet and tangy flavors, but you can use anything you want. I'm going to sprinkle this liberally all over this pork butt, and I'm going to use my hands and kind of massage it down into the meat as I rub it in. Make sure you get all parts of this pork butt, the sides, the back, the fat cap, get it all covered in this rub. Don't be stingy with the rub either, just load it up. I know it feels like this might be a lot of salt, but this is a big piece of meat, and that salt is not going to be able to penetrate all the way through to the meat. So really the only way you're going to get this flavor mixed in when you pull it is to put it on really heavy right now. Now that I have my pork butt generously rubbed, I'm going to transfer it to an aluminum pan, and I'm going to put that in the refrigerator uncovered overnight to let it cure. This will allow the meat to kind of dry out with that rub on it, which will add a really nice bark later when we actually go to cook it. So it's the next day, and you can see that this pork butt has kind of a dry texture to it. That's what we want to see. It's had a chance to cure in that rub overnight. Now I'm going to actually flip this over and expose that fat cap on the top. And to kind of help this render down when we cook it, I'm going to cut some deep slits across it. I'm just going to make kind of like a diagonal X pattern across this pork butt. Once you have some deep slits cut into it, I'm going to go back with my rub and sprinkle even more of it down into those slits, just so that we can get as much of that flavor and that seasoning down in there as possible. Now this thing is ready to go on the smoker. I'm going to be using some hickory pellets here. In my opinion, it really doesn't matter what flavor pellets you use, just use whatever's available. I honestly just go with whatever's cheapest. I hear hickory's pretty mild. So I'm going to go ahead and fill my hopper with those pellets. This is kind of a longer cook, so I want to make sure my hopper is all the way full with pellets before I begin. Don't want to risk having this smoker stop cooking in the middle of it. Then I'm going to go ahead and get it preheated. So I'm going to turn it on, and the temperature we're going for here is about 270, 275. So I'm going to set it to 270. I'm going to let it start preheating. And I'm also going to go ahead and attach my meat thermometer here so that I'm ready to go. As this thing preheats, you're going to notice some white smoke coming out. That's okay. You're going to kind of let that go until that white smoke disappears. You want a nice clean smoke before you begin. Once you see that white smoke disappear and your grill has reached temp, it's time to add our pork butt. I'm also going to be using the Blackstone app to monitor my pork butt because I'm trying to get to certain temperatures. Cooking on a smoker is all about temperature. So you want to monitor that temperature as best as possible, which is why I'm using Blackstone's meat thermometer system here so that I can monitor it on the Blackstone app. So I'm going to insert that probe here into my pork butt. I'm going to avoid the bone and put it in the middle of the pork butt. Insert it as far as I can, and then I'm going to set that right in the middle of my smoker, which is like the hot zone, and let it go. You're going to want to come back about every hour or so and spritz this. You could spritz it with some water if that's all you have, or you can spritz it with some apple cider vinegar or even something like apple juice. So about every hour I come back with a squirt bottle and just spritz it just to help keep it moist. Once my pork butt has reached about 165 degrees, it's time to go ahead and cover it up. At this point, the pork butt has absorbed all the smoke flavor it's going to absorb. so we want to avoid it drying out in that heat. So I like to put it in an aluminum pan and cover it with some aluminum foil, and this will help maintain the moisture of the pork butt. Before covering it, I'm actually going to add several pads of butter, and then I'm going to drizzle a hefty amount of Mike's hot honey. And then sprinkle some brown sugar across the top. This is going to add a nice deep flavor to your pulled pork later on. Then I'm just going to cover this up with my aluminum foil and set it back in the smoker to continue cooking. Our goal temperature now is 205 degrees. This is the perfect temperature for pulling pork. So I'm going to let this cook until it reaches that optimum 205 degrees. Once it has, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. And then it's time for this pork butt to rest. So we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes before I try to pull it. All in all, this cook took about 8 hours to complete. So this thing has sat covered. I did not open up the foil while it was resting for 30 minutes. So now it's time to go ahead and pull it. You'll know that your pork butt is ready to go because that bone is just going to pull right out of there. And you'll be able to just pull it with your hands. I'm using heat resistant gloves here because this pork butt is still very hot, so you want to protect your hands as much as possible. And then I just like to get in there with my hands. You can use a fork or some pulling tools, but I just like to use my hands to pull it apart. My goal is to keep some larger chunks of pork here. I don't want small little ribbons of meat. I'd like the larger pieces. Not only that, but you'll notice I've left this sit in its own juices. Those juices have all that flavor from that honey and brown sugar and butter that we added earlier. So it's almost made a nice au jus here that you can soak your pork in. So I like to pull it directly in those juices and kind of mix it up and let those juices kind of permeate the rest of the meat as I mix it up. And then there you have it. Delicious pulled pork straight off of the smoker. You can't get much better than this, guys. It's super easy, super delicious. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite way to make pulled pork? Has anybody picked up Blackstone's new pellet smoker yet? Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.